We are live. What is up, guys? Hey, everybody. Chandler Crouch here. I am here with Lindsay, William, and Jason. These are three expert realtors on our team, and just wanted to take a moment and talk a little bit about three main things. Number one is, and everything relates to the coronavirus, of course, right? You're getting on Facebook, and that's all you're going to see anyway. So we just want to join the discussion. We've got a few things that we want to talk about. Number one is about what we're going to do as a company to just, I guess, play a role here in the local community and our perspective on everything that's going on. The second thing is I want to talk for a moment about the real estate market, what's happening in the market, what we're personally seeing. And then the third thing is I want to talk about how this coronavirus and everything that's going on is going to potentially affect property tax protests. And so that is where we're going to start. So, guys, I want to just mention, like, we had a little brainstorming session on our private Facebook group about what's going on. And I just mentioned, like, there's a unique time that where we have a situation that is affecting everybody, but it's unique because it affects each of us in a very impactful way personally. And that's just, it's almost like the property tax thing. It's affecting so many people, but it also affects us each so much personally that we're just kind of all in the same boat, and it's a unique time. And so there's so many people out there operating out of fear and self-preservation and that sort of thing, which I totally get it. I can't, I mean, I've got the same emotions going on that everybody has, I think, where you kind of freaking out. You see the stock market going crazy, wondering what that means. You hear about the number of cases growing and you wonder what that means, and schools are shutting down and that sort of thing. And it's real easy to slip into a mentality of news overwhelm and being bombarded with all the negativity and fear and focus just inward on self-preservation, that sort of thing. But it's also there's also another part of this thing that I just feel like is important for us to be able to focus on, and we have it's this other side. It's a side of having a choice. We can buy into that, we can focus on all that stuff, or we can choose to live in faith and hope and love, and thinking about, instead of about only just thinking about ourselves, thinking about how we can actually help other people. And so that's what we're talking about in our private Facebook group. You guys, I think we have some mature folks in our company that may be in more of the at-risk crowd. And so some of those folks, I think, were wise to not like pipe up and say, hey, let me just hop out there and help however I can. But we've got a pretty young, hardy crowd in our company as well. And you guys were eager to jump in, and we're kind of like-minded in that way of thinking about how can we serve others in the midst of this thing, and kind of run the opposite way as we hear everybody kind of running for the hills. And so, so Jason, William, let me start with William. William, you had an idea about something that we could do as a company, and each of us individually do here, and something that we can do kind of collectively as a company to help our community. Could you share a little bit about what your idea is that on what we can do as a company to serve our community here?
Yeah, sure. I don't know. It kind of came about. I have a friend that is diabetic, and his doctor told him that he's at a higher risk. He's also over 50, and so I've offered to deliver groceries and pick up prescriptions for him, just so that he and his wife don't have to get out. And so when you asked, is there something that we could do, I thought, I was already doing that. Why not just add more people to the list? And so that's kind of where that idea from. I know that I'm, based on my age and who I am, apparently with the coronavirus, I'm the lower. And so I just thought, that's something that I can do. And I think, Jesus said to love your neighbor. So how do we do that? And whatever I can do to help. And I thought delivery might be a way that would be a good opportunity to serve some people and give back a little bit.
Awesome, man. Sounds good. And Lindsay, we talked a little bit about it as well. What are your thoughts on this whole thing? Why are you, just share your thoughts on William's idea here.
I'm kind of in the same boat as William. I have a heart to serve right now. I've got a sister who's got cancer, and she's immune suppressed, and she's more shut in than most others. And I'm keeping her baby right now, and I just want to help out. So whatever I can do. And I know the elderly and the sick are more vulnerable right now. And same thing as William. I just want to get out there and serve.
Cool. Jason, I know it's kind of hard to say anything new. I mean, those are my thoughts exactly. But do you have any other perspectives on your thoughts on this thing?
Well, I think it's important that it just shows that we're all thinking the same way, and that so therefore it must be a need. And it's interesting because I had the same thought yesterday that William had. I received an email from my son's teacher saying that she didn't know what to do with herself because we're out of school for 2 weeks. So she was going to go to the gym to keep her sanity. And then she mentioned she had elderly parents, and that's what's really is bothering her. And I just thought to myself, they're telling the elderly like to not go anywhere. So how are they going to get what they need? And so I just started thinking about me being a person who, once upon a time I was a firefighter EMT, and we're always running into the fire when everybody's running out. I thought, how can we bring calm to this panic? And when I walk into the store and you see all these empty shelves, how can we bring calm to this? And so this idea is great that William had. I'm glad he spoke up about it, because it's a way to bring calm, literally calm in the storm, and to show people that there is hope, and that instead of thinking of ourselves and going off on fear contagion and emptying the shelves out, we can actually serve each other and bring hope, because we're going to get through this and this thing's going to end, but we're not going to get through it if we're all hiding in our houses by ourselves. We're not going to get through it with our sanity. So, and I would also second what William said, that this is just what Jesus tells us to do. So it's important to come together in these times and not separate and do our own thing.
Cool. Yep. So, we were just talking about logistically how this could happen, and we've got some great ideas on how we could actually minimize the actually get the contact with whoever needs help, get it down to zero, where you never have to hand us money. We're not buying, just to be clear, we're not buying anybody's groceries. This is a delivery service. We're happy to help you. We can help you actually place an order. Once your order is placed, then we'll deliver it to you. We can set the groceries on your front porch and go from there. And I would also like to mention, I've seen since we started talking about this, I plugged into Facebook just a little bit more to try and get an idea of the temperament out there. And I saw a couple other people doing this. There's another real estate agent with another company doing a lot of the same thing. And I saw some pastors at a church willing to do the same thing. And so we're all willing to help. I know, and there may be somebody else with the company that decides that they want to join in on this. But let's say if there's a huge need that's not being served out there in this area, then I know people that we can contact to help get plugged in, and people that I know, like I would trust them absolutely with my groceries or my money or whatever the case is. So anyway, awesome stuff. Happy to help. If you want to, if you know somebody that could use that help, or if you want to take advantage of it yourself, just go ahead and you can just message me or our company directly, or you can comment on this post. We're going to have folks monitoring it throughout the day, and so we're happy to help with that. All right, let's move on. Hey, while you guys are on, we were also just talking a little bit about your experience with how this coronavirus stuff and everything going on in the news has affected real estate. And I'm so glad that we have the ability to have this conversation rather than just go to the news, because it's interesting how your personal experience differs from what I've actually seen in the news on different things. And so let's start with William again. William, what's been your experience with how you've seen things change or be the same, or what's your experience in real estate right now with how you see this affecting everything?
So working with, they've kind of had things on hold now that people are stuck inside. I've seen them searching a lot more for houses, and they're actively looking. I kind of made this point earlier that if you're stuck at home, you start realizing all the things you really don't like about your house because you're living in it, and you can't leave. And I've been guilty of that also. So just some personal experience, and then talking to other buyers, that's kind of the trend. And so we're talking with sellers, people are thinking about selling it. The first question they ask is kind of, where's the market, and is it a good time to sell? And I think if buyers are actively looking, it's always a good time to sell. And we've got a proven track record of having buyers that are looking. I mean, we have tons of them in my contact list that are currently looking. We've all discussed that. So then you also have the rate situation. Rates are still low, and it looks like they could be dropping. We've kind of seen that with the stock market and all those things, and the government's doing the right things to stimulate the economy and keep things rolling. And so I think there's definitely potential for buyers to get a really good deal on a house. The seller to be able to top dollar. Now is a great time as any to continue.
We got some connection issues. You got some connection issues with him, but let me ask. So speak personally about the folks that you're actually working with. Are you working with more, or do you have more clients right now looking for houses than before, or less, or in? Just give me an idea of how you've actually.
For sure,
you're saying you've got more people looking.
Yeah, we have one that just went under contract on Friday, and then I have another lady that we were writing an offer again today. Like, for example, I had one house that we've been marketing really well, and I had tons of calls on that house yesterday. I had 35 people to call, or I guess
yesterday. Everybody's at home, nothing to do except for real estate. That's wild, man. Hey, I'm gonna go to Lindsay because we got some connection issues. Hey, I'm gonna move to Lindsay. Lindsay, how about you? What's been your experience?
My experiences have been about the same. I've got the same. I had 2 closings last month, and I've got 2 buyers actively looking right now. I've got 2 listings, one under contract and one that we listed on Monday. And showings have slowed a little bit on that one. We expect to get more showings in the next couple of weeks on that one. We should have more showings than we are having right now, but my experience has been about the same. I've got about the same number of clients as I've had previously. So
how about that? So same number of clients, same number of buyers. Basically, you've got people actively looking, but you've got a listing where you would have expected to see more showings on that, and you've seen less. But yes. Okay, that's a mixed bag. What about you, Jason? What's been your experience here in the real estate market?
Generally speaking, buyers are still interested and sellers are still talking about it. You know, people have questions and some uncertainty, but that's where we come in as professionals who have our finger on the pulse of what's happening. Is that we know from experience that times like this create great opportunities for people to buy, and there are still plenty of houses available for people who want to buy. I know they say that inventory is tight, if you read the national stuff, but there are still houses for sale. There are still people who want to buy. There are plenty of people who are calling me who are saying, hey, I'm looking to buy. They may just have some additional questions. You know, is this really a smart time? Should I wait? And that's where we come as real estate professionals, is to kind of put the fear aside, give them the facts, and help them to make a decision based on facts and rationale, not a fear-based decision. So it's not slowing down in terms of the number of people looking to do anything. It's just, there's just different questions, and it's a great opportunity for as realtors for us to, again, bring calm in the panic, because rates, they're talking about rates now. They're asking the question, are we going to see rates go below 3%? I just read something this morning on that, and they're already at historic lows. So it's like, how low can they go? And the thing that I'm consistently telling buyers is, every day that you wait, property gets more expensive, and eventually the rates are going to go back up. So
eventually,
now's a good time.
It's so crazy. It seems like I've been saying that for 10 years, and then
right.
every time you come around, there's a brand new historical low. You know, it just keeps going lower. It keeps going. Now we're talking about 2s. It's unthinkable. It's crazy.
Right.
Jason, you mentioned that you actually had somebody say something. He was looking at the stock market, and he got emotional, and he's making decisions based on the stock market, but it was not a decision that I would have expected. Tell me about that conversation you had with a guy.
Okay, so I actually have 3 cash buyers, and they're looking for the right property. And as cash buyers, of course, they're being very careful how they spend it. I understand that. And I don't know if he talked to somebody or what he did. I'm a pretty significant stock market investor, so I understand that world pretty clearly. And he just felt that it was the other day when the Dow dropped like 3,000 points. That would be a great time to get in. And that part he was right about. It would be a great time to get in. And I tell people that if you have extra money, that's a great time to buy. Don't buy single stocks, but I'll save the investing speech for another time. But, you know, it's a great time to get in if you find somebody who knows what they're doing. The problem with that, as I told him, is I said, well, what's your long-term plan then? He said, well, you know, when it goes back up, I'm going to get out. And I said, well, have you ever heard of capital gains? And he didn't know what capital gains were. And so you should probably know that before you go into the stock market, because it's a pretty high rate. That means that you're making money. But if you invest in a house right now, you don't pay capital gains until you sell the house. And that's only if you sell it and if you live it in less than 2 years. So it's actually going to be more expensive for this guy in the long run to do the investing that he was thinking about doing the way he's doing it than if he were to put it in real estate and buy a house, which was his initial goal anyway.
Right. You're talking about a house to live in, right?
A house to live in, yes, not for investment. Right. Now, he was looking for a house to live in. That's why I'm qualifying this. He was not an investor, home investor. He was looking for a house to live in. But
there are 1031 exchanges where you can
right.
Yeah,
that's possible.
There's no risk out of the property capital gain.
It's just for him, it was a lot of money, and for his goal was trying to buy a house. And it just goes into again what I'm saying again about what we're saying as a theme here is don't make fear-based decisions. Make decisions based on facts and what's best for you. And I still believe what was best for that particular individual would have been to buy a house, not put money in the stock.
Yeah, you know, and I'll speak for just a second on what I've seen. Let's see, last week, I can't predict the future, but I'm really, really good at listening to someone smart and repeating what they say. So that's what I was doing last week when people were asking, hey, what's going on with interest rates? And the smartest people I could get my hands on were saying, hey, interest rates could dip into the 2s. And then it was almost like just as soon as that happened, then rates all of a sudden shot up to like 3.8, 3.9 or something crazy like that. They shot up and I'm like, okay, now I'm repeating the smart guy and all of a sudden things changed. Well, what happened was things were going bad in the stock market and economy. The coronavirus was kicking off and with things going bad at a certain level, it was going to drive interest rates down. Well, then things went bad about 10 levels below that, and all of a sudden it has some kind of reverse effect and something that's you know, some kind of economic impact that's over my head occurred, and so rates shot back up, and then I hear, you know, the Fed drops rates to 0, and one thing after another happens, and now I've heard the same conversations that it could get back down to the 2s. I think the rates are down a little bit today. It's something like the stock market. It's like, you know, it really, Jason, what you said is absolutely true. It's like the rate game is great to play if you just don't have any kind of pressing need and you're just playing the game like a day trader, you know, whatever. If you want to play the game, play the game. But for the 95, 97% of us, the right time to buy or sell or refinance is when it's right for you. And of course, refinancing is a little bit different conversation because it is more rate driven than anything else. But when it's right for you, that's the right time. And so, and that's what I hear a lot of you guys or your personal experiences with the folks that you're talking with on a daily basis. Now, one thing I want to mention that from just repeating smart people and looking at charts, I would like to show a chart now, but I'm not going to do that. I just did a market update video, posted it on this Facebook page, and emailed it out to most everybody about a week ago, and or earlier this week. Anyway, whenever, recently, and it showed home prices over the long term, and it also had little grayed out bars on it on one of these charts I showed. And if you look at that closely, you'll see that real estate prices didn't ever dip because of a recession. Real estate historically doesn't cause recessions. It usually real estate. Stock market doesn't cause real estate prices to dip. I said that backwards. The only times, but when real estate dips, it can drive the economy into a recession. And so, if we're going into a recessionary period, the housing market is strong. In all likelihood, we're not going to see the real estate market drop. We're going to see people leave the stock market, leave other places, and go to safe refuge, which they see as commodities and real estate. And so that's what smarter people than me are saying, and that's just what I feel like repeating that is a pretty safe thing because it's kind of a market principle. However, we're living in uncharted territories. What we're doing, what we're in right now is temporary. Everybody can agree on that. It's a temporary thing. The real estate fundamentals are strong, like I showed in the last real estate market update video, And so if you're in it for the long term, then you're going to be safe if you're just taking one step in front of the next. But I also realize, your income can be questionable right now. There's a lot going on. But anyway, hey guys, thank you so much for your personal experience and insight into this. Thank you for your heart. And if you want help with groceries, then reach out, comment, and we'll take care of you. I'm going to kick you guys off of this chat. I'm going to give a little bit of an update on how this whole coronavirus is affecting property tax protests and what we can expect to see over the next month or so with this stuff. So thank you guys so much. If I can figure out how to work the technology, I'm going to kick you out of here. Bye-bye. Over now. See you later. Bye. All right, now it's just me. Here we go. Okay, guys, I've got my notes over here, and I'm going to keep looking to this side. But as I mentioned, I've been to every board meeting that the appraisal district has had since they got the new board of directors on, and it's been entertaining and informative. And I wanted to pass along to you the most recent board meeting that I went to. It was on Monday. And the topic of discussion was, how is the coronavirus going to affect protests and what's going to happen as we get into the tax protest season? So the first thing that I want to mention is that if property value notices go out, they're not going out the first week of April. They're going out right around April 15th. Okay, so that's different than last year. It's normal if you don't get them until then. For us as a company, if you were signed up, if we helped you protest, then it's going to be sometime after that. Once we get the value notices, we have to digitize them. We're going to email them out to you. So just be patient with that. However, one of the most interesting tidbits that came out of that meeting was the possibility that, let's see here. I want to make sure that my technology is good. There we go. It was the possibility that Governor Abbott could allow the appraisal districts to not send those notices out and to not revalue property this year. They were talking like it's a real possibility that they may just decide to keep 2019 values exactly the same this year, which would eliminate the need to send out value notices. And then the amount of protests would go down significantly and the whole environment would change significantly. So they were kind of kicking around the idea of, wondering if they felt like it was in the public's best interest, should they just pull the trigger on that, hope that, that there's, just pull the trigger on that and act in the public's best interest if they were to determine that that's the best way to go, or should we wait for an order from the governor to say, hey, let's do this. I know that they were shortly after the board meeting, there was a phone call with some politicians and some things going on where they were going to try and seek approval for that sort of thing. But that could significantly change how tax protests go. You would, from what I understand, you would still have the ability to protest your property taxes. They would start to encourage people to protest using the online method or over the phone method. And the process for that would be completely different because it would involve you having to get an affidavit to submit your evidence. All the informal protests would be done electronically if possible. And so that would be different. Right now, they just switched their office to, they shut the doors. They're not allowing the public in right now because I know President Trump said that we want to try and keep crowds down to 10 or less. And so not having people in the building, as far as their staff goes and as far as the public goes, it helps a whole lot to take measures to get closer to that. I believe that is a temporary measure, and they're just kind of waiting to see what the government officials and CDC says on the direction they should go on that as to when they would open the doors back up to the public. They're going to install a drop box to allow you to submit your protest through a drop box on May 15th. And that way you can actually drop off your protests after hours. That was something that has been a request from previous years, but that'll also help limit the exposure. let's see. I'm just kind of jumping all over the place, reading my bullets over here off my notes. But another measure that they're going to do is they're going to install 24-inch plexiglass panel all the way around that front counter, so that you can't actually, so that there's some kind of barrier in between the public and the personnel. They were very concerned about the employees there at the appraisal district having to interface with the public on such a high level, because there's a lot of foot traffic that comes in, and so that was a concern. So if they do open the doors up, they're going to have that panel there, and that'll help limit the exposure. So another thing that's pretty interesting is that there are about 250 employees at the appraisal district, and that's much larger than what people are saying we should have crowds of. Each department has about 50 people in each department, and so what they've decided to do to just eliminate the crowds there in the building from their own personnel is to go on some kind of alternating shift where they'll have 50% of the employees there one day and 50% the next day, and they have the 50% that aren't there, they're going to be working from home virtually. And so most departments can take care of their work and not skip a beat by working virtually. And so I found that to be interesting. All that stuff could affect how protests are conducted. When you go into a protest, you have the 3-person panel. The 3-person panel, those are ARB board members. They have stopped all of the in-person training for them. I know the TAD training for those guys has already been completed, but there's some additional training that needs to happen on a different level that's been canceled. Let's see here. I'm going to go through a couple of these. They're looking at possibly having off-site protests, because if they've got less staff up there to deal with the same number of protests potentially, then they're going to need bigger spaces, because there could be more people. So they're going to need to spread people out and break people up into groups. So they were creating strategy based on how they would handle that to make sure that the crowds don't get too big, but they can also serve everybody. And let me see what other kind of notes I have here. Let's see. Just in case you're wondering, so May 15th is still going to be the deadline to file your protest. They'll actually start protest hearings on the 16th, as long as nothing else changes. And the online portal, if you like using that, then it's actually going to stay open much later. It's going to, what they said their plan right now is to stay open past midnight. Actually staying open potentially 12 hours into the next day was one idea that they had. And let's see, interesting tidbit, there are 83, 84 employees that make up those 3-person panels. That's how many people they have on staff to handle all those. I forget how many panel rooms they have to conduct all those. Let me look and see what other notes I have. Okay, well, let me just go right back to the most interesting thing. So the most interesting thing that could happen is they could, if they get Governor Abbott's approval, then they could decide to not raise values this year, and just to keep the 2019 values the same, not send notices out. That would decrease the number of protests significantly, which would take care of a lot of the problems. For the protests that do occur, they're going to try and funnel those towards informal protests as much as possible, or do over the phone protests, or do what they call affidavit protests, which I'll probably put out a tutorial video on later. I just wanted to mention, if things go this route, then you shouldn't, it is definitely cause for celebration, because we're going to pay less property tax if that happens. However, that doesn't mean real estate values aren't going to be climbing. They absolutely will be climbing. It's just that your property tax value is not going to reflect a proportionate increase this year. Instead, what's going to happen is in 2021, if presumably all this is behind us, it's going to be another normal year. They're going to have to revalue the property, and all indications that I'm seeing show that the real estate market is going to increase. Values are going to go up, and so they could end up having to make up for 2 years worth of value increase the next year. And the reason is they're not doing it to punish anybody. The reason why they would do that is because they are mandated to value property according to what the real life market value of a property is. And if that market value is climbing every single year, actually every single month, then if they don't increase the value for 12 months, then what that means is the next 12-month period, whenever they do value that property, it's just going to be a much larger jump. So if they go that route and they don't increase values this year, then you'll want to probably save just a little extra money, because in the following year they may end up making up for it. I should also mention this. There's this, if you have a homestead filed on your property and your value has been increasing like crazy year over year, then the amount you pay taxes on is more than likely less than the amount that they're valuing your property at. Okay, if you go to the Tarrant County Appraisal District website, you'll see what they think your house is actually worth. They label that the market value. What you actually pay taxes on, they label that the appraised value. Okay, and it shouldn't be labeled the appraised value. They should label it the homestead capped value, because it's suppressing your value because you have a homestead exemption filed on the property. So what could happen is, if the appraisal district decided not to increase values, the market value of the property, then this 10% cap is going to increase by 10% until it catches up with that. So if there's a huge gap in between your appraised value and your market value, then there's a potential that, depending on governor's orders, if he gives orders, there's a potential that you can still see an increase in your tax bill without their opinion of the value of your house actually changing. So that's kind of gets into the nuts and bolts of how this whole thing works. Right now, these are just hypotheticals and possibilities of what could happen. I just wanted to give you the insight as to what's going on right now. As I mentioned, the doors are closed at the appraisal district. There's not a whole lot that you can do right now. There's not going to be really anything that you're going to be able to do until those value notices come out, or at least until after April 15th, just kind of depending on the climate of what happens with this coronavirus and what happens with the orders that we do or do not get from Governor Abbott. But there you have it. There's the inside scoop. That's what could potentially be going on, and that's what is going on. And we want to help you in the midst of all of this. We want to help with information, and we want to help be a resource. And guys, I just want to thank you again for all of your support, and thank you so much for to our clients. And if you need anything at all, we are here to help and here to serve. Thank you so much. You'll have a great day.